She knew before you did, before you could walk, before you could speak, before you even understood what this world was. She already knew what you were going to become. Your grandmother looked at you differently than she looked at everyone else. You felt it, didn't you? Even if you were too young to name it, even if you pushed it aside and told yourself you were imagining things, deep down in a place that logic has never been able to touch, you always knew she saw something in you that others couldn't see. She wasn't just loving you, she was protecting something, a truth so sacred, so specific, so spiritually charged that she carried it in silence for years. Through hard mornings and quiet evenings, through prayers whispered at the edge of her bed when she thought no one was listening. But God was listening. And tonight is the night that secret gets released. You didn't find this video by accident. You didn't stumble here because you were bored. You didn't click play because you had nothing better to do. Something older than coincidence brought you to this exact moment. Something that operates beyond the algorithms, beyond the timelines, beyond every explanation your rational mind will try to offer. You were directed here because there are people on this earth who carry a mark they were never told about, a spiritual inheritance they were never handed directly, a calling that was prayed into existence before they were even born by someone who loved them in a way that most people will never fully understand. Your grandmother was one of those intercessors. And you are one of those marked ones. The chosen ones don't always come from perfect homes. They don't always come from churches with stained glass windows or families who had the language for what they were experiencing. Sometimes the chosen ones come from broken kitchens and complicated silences, from grandmothers who couldn't explain theology but could feel God's hand on a child's life with more accuracy than any seminary graduate. She didn't need a title. She had discernment, and she used every single prayer, every single tear, every single sleepless night to build a spiritual wall around you, one that has protected you in ways you are only beginning to comprehend. Think about the moments you should not have survived, the decisions that should have destroyed you, the doors that closed before you walked through the wrong ones, the people who left before they could damage what was being built inside of you. That wasn't luck. That was her prayers still working, still active, still moving through the atmosphere on your behalf. And tonight, God is honoring what she planted. He is releasing the secret she carried. He is handing you something she always believed you would one day be ready to receive. Are you ready? Because this changes everything. Everything you thought about yourself is about to shift. Part 1. The prayers that outlived her. There is a theology that most churches never teach. It is not complicated, it is not hidden in ancient manuscripts or locked behind academic degrees. It is written in the lived experience of every person who has ever watched a grandmother close her eyes and pray with an intensity that made the room feel heavier, warmer, more alive. The theology is this: prayers do not die when the person praying them does. Read that again, slowly. The prayers of the righteous are not subject to the same laws as the body that offered them. They are not buried with the woman who spoke them. They are not silenced by grief, by time, by distance, or by death. They are seeds, and seeds operate on God's timeline, not ours. Your grandmother planted something in the spiritual atmosphere over your life. She did it on ordinary Tuesday mornings when she sat at her kitchen table and spoke your name to a God she trusted with everything she had. She did it in the middle of the night when the weight of what she sensed about you was too heavy to sleep through. She did it at the end of her life when perhaps her voice was quiet but her spirit was still burning. She wasn't just praying generic prayers. She was praying specific ones. She saw your potential before you performed it. She believed in your healing before you knew you were wounded. She interceded for your purpose before you had the courage to even whisper it out loud. And here's what most people never stop to consider. Every single one of those prayers is still in motion. The Bible speaks of a golden bowl in heaven filled with the prayers of the saints, not discarded, not expired, not forgotten, stored, honored, waiting for the appointed moment of release. Your grandmother's prayers are in that bowl. Your name is in that bowl. And tonight, God is tipping it. You may have spent years feeling like you were falling behind, like everyone around you was advancing while you were standing still, like the promises that lived in your chest were taking too long, costing too much, demanding more than you had left to give. But what if that waiting wasn't abandonment? What if it was preparation? What if the very delays that made you question everything were actually God making sure that when the release came, you would be strong enough to carry what He was about to hand you? She knew you would go through the fire. She prayed you would not be consumed by it. She saw in the Spirit what you could not see with your eyes, that the breaking was part of the becoming, that the seasons of confusion were the curriculum, that the loneliness wasn't a punishment, but a classroom. She prayed you through every single one, and now you're standing on the other side, different, deeper, more ready than you know. The prayers that outlived her are about to produce a harvest that will leave you breathless. You are not where you are by accident. You are exactly where she asked you to bring you.
Part 2. The mark you were born with. Not everyone carries what you carry. This is not arrogance. This is not spiritual pride. This is not the language of ego dressed up in religious clothing. This is discernment. And discernment requires you to be honest about what has been placed inside of you, even when that honesty feels uncomfortable. Even when part of you still believes you're too ordinary, too broken, too inconsistent to be carrying something divine. But your grandmother didn't see ordinary. She saw the mark. The mark is not something you earned. It is not something you achieved through discipline or deserved through behavior. The mark is something you were born with, a spiritual assignment that was written over your life before your first breath ever touched this atmosphere. Some children enter this world already carrying a weight that other children don't seem to feel. Were you one of those children? Did you sense things others didn't sense? Did you feel the emotions in a room before anyone spoke? Did you grieve losses more deeply, love more fiercely, ask questions that made adults shift uncomfortably in their seats? Did you always feel slightly outside, slightly different, like you were watching life from 1 inch further back than everyone else, able to see the patterns, the connections, the deeper meanings that others walked past without noticing? That is the mark. That sensitivity is not weakness. That depth is not damage. That difference is not disorder. It is the signature of a soul that came here with a specific assignment, a soul that was not designed for the surface of things, a soul that was built for depth, for impact, for a kind of transformation that only becomes possible when a person has been through enough to understand what transformation actually costs. Your grandmother recognized it immediately. Because often, people who carry the mark are drawn to each other across generations. The grandmother who had it recognizes the grandchild who carries it next, not always with words, often with a look, a touch, a way of holding you that said everything language was too small to contain. She held you like you were sacred, because you were, because you are. And here is the part that will shake something loose inside of you. The mark is not just about what you will do. It is about who you will free. The chosen ones are not chosen for comfort. They're not chosen for easy, uncomplicated, applause-filled lives. They're chosen because God identified in them a capacity, a willingness to carry what others cannot carry, to go where others will not go, to speak what others are too afraid to say. You were chosen because someone, somewhere, perhaps many people, are waiting for you to become who you were born to be. Your grandmother prayed for you, but she also prayed for them, the people whose lives will change because you finally stepped into your fullness, the people whose chains will break because you used your voice, the people who will find their way home because you were brave enough to show them the door. She saw all of them, and she prayed for all of them through you. You are not just a person walking through their own story. You are a door, and God is getting ready to open you wide. Part 3. Why she never told you. You might be asking it right now, the question that lives just beneath everything you felt watching this. If she knew, why didn't she tell me? It is a fair question. It deserves an honest answer. She didn't tell you because she understood something that most modern culture has completely forgotten. Some truths spoken too early can crush the very thing they're trying to honor. A seed told about the tree it will become before it has developed roots does not grow faster. It grows confused. It grows with the weight of expectation, pressing down on soil that isn't ready yet to hold that kind of pressure. Your grandmother was a gardener, and gardeners know the difference between the right season and the right seed. She protected you by staying silent. She loved you enough to let you develop without the burden of knowing, without the performance pressure that comes when a child is told they are special before they have learned to be still, before they have been taught how to fail, before they have been shaped by enough darkness to truly appreciate what the light is worth. She watched you go through things that broke her heart. Do not doubt that for a single second. Every time you struggled, every time you were overlooked, every time you almost gave up, she felt it. She wept for it. She brought it back to God and said, "You told me. You showed me. Don't let them lose themselves in this." And God heard her every single time. But there was something else too, something even more specific. She also didn't tell you because part of what she carried was a knowledge of your origin, where your family came from, what was survived so that you could be born, the spiritual lineage that runs through your bloodline, the prayers of ancestors you never met, the prayers of great-grandmothers whose names you might not even know, the covenants made with God in seasons of desperation that are still legally active over your family line. You are not just your parents' child. You are the product of a long chain of people who refused to give up, people who prayed in languages that are no longer spoken, people who held their children in the dark and whispered promises over them that they had no earthly evidence for, people who trusted God with a rawness and a desperation that produced a spiritual momentum, and that momentum has been building generation after generation until it reaches the person it was always building toward, you. Your grandmother knew you were the one it was building toward. That is the secret she carried, and now it is yours, not as a burden, as a blessing, as an inheritance that was always yours, just waiting for the moment you were ready to receive it without being destroyed by its weight. That moment is now, tonight. You are ready.
Part 4. What God is releasing tonight. Let's be specific, because spiritual content that stays vague doesn't change lives, and you deserve specificity. You deserve to know exactly what tonight means. God is releasing confirmation tonight for those of you who have been circling the same question for months, for those of you who have been standing at a crossroads unable to move because you needed a sign that felt real, felt personal, felt unmistakably like God. This video, this moment, this feeling in your chest right now, this is that sign. You are not crazy for the things you sense. You are not delusional for the dreams you have had. You are not arrogant for the quiet inner knowing that has whispered to you since you were a child that you were made for something significant. You were right. She knew you were right, and God is confirming it tonight. God is also releasing healing tonight. There are wounds in you that are connected to your grandmother, wounds from her absence if she is gone, wounds from things that were left unsaid, wounds from the grief of watching someone who understood you completely leave this world before you felt finished, before you felt seen enough, known enough, held enough. God sees that wound. He is moving on it tonight. The relationship is not over just because she is no longer here in a body. Love does not end a death. The spiritual connection between a grandmother who prayed and the grandchild she prayed over is not severed by time or by physical absence. She still knows your name. And in whatever way the eternal works, in whatever form the communion of saints takes in God's presence, she is aware of this moment. She knows you are receiving tonight. She is celebrating. God is releasing breakthrough tonight. The thing you have been waiting for, the door that has been stuck, the opportunity that has been delayed, the relationship or the resources or the recognition that has felt impossibly far, is closer than your fear is telling you. The prayers she planted are producing right now, in real time. The harvest is not coming. The harvest is here. You are standing in it. But you have to choose to see it. You have to choose to receive it. You have to open your hands and your heart and say out loud, even if only in a whisper, I receive what was prayed for me. I receive the inheritance. I receive the mark. I receive the release. Say it, mean it, let it change the cellular structure of how you see yourself, because that is the final thing God is releasing tonight. Identity, the truest, deepest, most accurate version of who you actually are. Not the version shaped by rejection, not the version formed in seasons of grief and self-doubt and comparison and failure, not the version that learned to make itself small to survive in spaces that were never built for it. The version your grandmother always saw, the version God has always known, the version that was written before the foundation of the world, before your parents met, before your grandparents were born, before any human being had any input into who you were going to be. That version is being released tonight. Receive it. You made it to the end. That is not accidental either. Most people click away. Most people let the distraction win. Most people sit at the edge of something transformative and find a reason to leave before it finishes its work in them. But you stayed because something in you recognized this, something older than your conscious mind, something that lives in the part of you that your grandmother touched and prayed over and believed in. That part of you knew this message was yours. So here is what I need you to do. Not tomorrow, not after you scroll for another hour, not after you sleep on it and let the busyness of life press this moment flat. Now. Find a quiet space, even 60 seconds of quiet. Place your hand over your heart and speak this out loud. The prayers that were prayed for me are not wasted. The mark I was born with is real. The secret my grandmother carried, I receive it, not as pressure, as power. I receive my inheritance tonight. Say it like you mean it. Say it like the woman who spent years on her knees on your behalf is listening, because in whatever way the eternal allows, she might be. You are not starting from zero. You are standing on a foundation of prayer that stretches back further than you can see. You are standing on spiritual ground that was prepared for you by people who loved you before you existed and believed in you before you had done a single thing to earn it. That is grace. That is inheritance. That is the love of God expressed through the most human of vessels, an old woman with rough hands and a soft voice who looked at a small child and saw something so sacred she could only carry it in prayer. Honor her. Honor what she planted. Honor it by finally believing what she always believed about you. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far from the person you were created to be. You are, in this moment, standing at the exact threshold where everything she prayed for begins to become visible. Cross it. The world needs what is in you. The people who are waiting for you need you to finally understand your own value. The assignment that has your name on it needs you to stop shrinking and start stepping. The healing that moves through you cannot reach the people it was meant for until you stop treating yourself like an afterthought and start treating yourself like what you actually are, a chosen one, marked before birth, prayed over before you could walk, carrying a secret that God is releasing tonight. And the only question that remains, the only question that has ever mattered, is whether you are finally ready to believe it. She always believed it. Now it's your turn. If this message found you tonight, if something in your chest cracked open while you watch this, leave a comment below and tell us what God released in you tonight. Your testimony might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear. Share this with someone who needs to receive their inheritance. And if no one has told you lately, you were chosen, you were prayed for, and you are not alone.